Hi, my loves. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. To all my returning subscribers, thank you for coming back, guys. And to all of you guys that are new, welcome. It's nice to have you here. Please like the content, share, subscribe, and engage in the comments down below. Yeah. So basically, today's another topic. It's something that's a little bit of a downer, but I feel like it's an important topic to touch on, and because mainly also because it's something that I've experienced personally, so might help someone else relate or help someone who might be going through the same thing that I faced. And also, please don't mind the lightning. It might change during the duration of this video. I'm shooting it in the evening and the sun is sort of setting, so it's just all over the place. But yeah, right, so the title of today's video, as if you have already seen, it is navigating loss when you are abroad. I know it's a bit of a heavy subject, but it's something that in that fortunate event it does happen, and it's something that you have to face when life throws it at you. So I'll just be speaking mainly based on my personal experience. It's something that I experienced tragically 2 months after I moved from South Africa to the UK. So it was something that was quite life-changing, but also very damaging, and yeah, it takes a lot to deal with. But yeah, just to give a bit of background story, you can take this as like a story time. So yeah, just relax, grab something to drink, grab some snacks, and then yeah, let's just dive into this. And if I do cry at the call during the course of this video, don't mind me. Not completely, I've healed, but I'm still in the process of processing. I think you never fully heal from something like this. It's something that is a work in progress. Some days are better than others. Some days are just like, you really feel it. And today, for me, it's one of those days where I'm like, yeah, I kind of feel it more. But anyway, yeah. So I grew up in a household which was from my mother's side of the family. My mom and dad they never married. So I grew up being raised by my mom's side of the family, but mainly my grandparents. My mom had me when she was still in varsity, so she had me and she went back to varsity, and I was raised by my grandmother most of the time during my childhood years. So I really developed such a very strong bond with them, and yeah, they played a very fundamental role in my upbringing because they were the first person to go to. I was their adoptive child, if you can call it that, because they literally did everything for me. I don't think my mom did a lot, because my grandmother changed my nappies. She would sleep with me. I remember even when I was going to school, like grade 1, she was the person getting me and my sister ready for school. My grandfather would take me and my other siblings and cousins to school with his car, and he'd fetch us back as well. So they played a shared responsibility in terms of like our well-being, upkeeping, school, and everything of that sort. So I was quite close with I still am quite close with both of them. And my grandfather played a very, very fundamental role, especially because he was the male figure that I looked up to. And I think as time went by, I think he's the point of reference I look up to when I speak about a male figure, because he's always been present in my life. He's always been the man that's been there whenever you need anything. You can count on him. My dad, it's a bit of a struggle with my dad. We have a very strained relationship, and I honestly don't know. He is present financially, but in terms of like parenting wise, he's never really been that present. And I think mainly the contributing factor would be the fact that I didn't live with him as a child, and yeah, he sort of didn't really make an effort as well. But he is, and he's been there for me financially. So yeah. But when I speak of a male figure, you know, doing what a dad does, taking care of the family, providing, the point of reference would be my grandfather. So yeah, great man, great man, and this is the loss that I'm referring to. He sadly passed away in October 2019. So that was the same year that I was meant to move. And it started off very, very lightly, guys. It started off very, very lightly because I remember I was preparing that year because I knew I was going. I came back home from Joburg. I had, that's another story for another day, but I moved back from Joburg around May, June, and I was due to leave in September. So I had like a good 3-4 months back at home with him, and which was unusual because normally I grew up, went to high school, moved back away from home, went to uni, and I never really spent a lot. Like I never really spent like a good 4-5 months at home just sitting, not doing anything, you know. So that 4 months I'm really grateful for, because it started off lightly, guys. Like he was complaining that he had difficulties, you know, going to the bathroom. And you know how men are, they don't take things seriously. You know, you think it was symptoms that are not as severe because he had problems like urinating, but even when he's urinating, it would burn, and he would urinate blood as well. But he didn't take it too hard at that point. Like he went to the doctor, I think he didn't really pay mind to him, and time went by, and it got really worse, and you could see that now he's in pain. So we took him to the hospital, and when he got to the hospital, the doctor said, okay, fine, you have an infection, we're gonna give you a catheter. Oh, there was a whole struggle. He didn't want that. You know how men and their egos are. It was a very, very big struggle for him to get that catheter on, but eventually he did. And then that's where things sort of kicked off, because in as much as they were saying it was an infection, but it was not explaining the pain, because they gave him antibiotic, but it was still not going away. You know, it was not going away, and he was experiencing severe pain. Oh, my goodness, it was difficult to watch. But anyway, yeah, so he deteriorated very fast after like going to the hospital and being admitted. They did some tests, they didn't find anything wrong with him. Eventually we were like, no, this person is really ill. So we took him to a hospital in Durban and Eddington Hospital, and that's where they admitted him. And yeah, so during that duration of the time when I was preparing to come this side, he was in hospital, but we didn't think it was something major because he was a very healthy person. He didn't get sick often, and he was very active. He was in his 60s, but he was still pretty much working on his farm, and he was active. He never really got sick. He never took it seriously because he hardly ever got sick. So yeah, that's when things really got worse for him, when he was admitted to hospital. And then from there onwards, they did some tests. They found that he has an infection, as I said. But further to that infection, they also found that he has prostate cancer. And that was the point when I was due to come back now. So I left when they had sort of diagnosed that he has this cancer. And I was like, okay, fine, you know, cancer is treatable, something that can be sort of dealt with. I said my goodbyes to him, and he was in so much pain. And because, you know, the prostate is on a delicate part of the male anatomy, so it was very difficult, because I remember me and my grandmother were the people going in and out of hospital, trying to see to everything, but also because there's a language barrier. So if you don't know this, my grandparents grew up in an era where they were not afforded the opportunity to study and learn. So even though my grandfather has a very huge success story of how he made his life a success, even though he had like that language barrier, so he didn't know English. So I was the person translating and doing things. And because he's in so much pain, you're trying to help, you're trying to sort of dress him, and then, you know, but it was very, very, very traumatic and sad. Yeah. And time went by, I had to come back, so I said my goodbyes. I remember telling him, it was so traumatic for everybody, because we were literally living in the hospital, not living, like every day we had to go to the hospital, and me preparing on the side. You're not really happy because someone is sick. Like, no one is in the mood to like sort of like wish you well and say, okay, let's have something, getting away party. Everyone's just focused on getting this person better. And because it's the main breadwinner at home, you know, things are affected. He's the main person that knows how to drive, so if he's not well, then we have to get people to drive us, because at that point I didn't have a license. I still don't. I didn't have a license. My grandmother didn't have a license. My mom and my aunts were working, so they had taken time off, but it wasn't sort of cooperate. It wasn't working to a point where they would come to the hospital every day. But yeah, I said my goodbyes to him, and I remember the last time I visited him in hospital. He was okay. That day, he was making jokes. He wasn't in so much pain. We spoke. I'm like, okay, you know that this thing has happened, and I am, guys, don't, like, as I said, if I'm still crying about it, it's because I've healed, but it's still part of like a long journey. When I still think about it today, sometimes it does bring tears to my eyes. So, like, yeah, don't mind my tears. Yeah, I spoke to him and I was like, I'm leaving. I just came to say goodbye. And he wished me well. I was like, no. Have a safe trip. We will talk properly and catch up when I get out of here. And I was like, yes. Yeah, he wasn't well. Yeah. So yeah, I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, I mean, that was promising. There was nothing in my head that would made me think that was the last time that I was seeing him physically, you know. But yeah, I said my goodbyes and I was like, okay, cool. I left with the hope that he's gonna get better. We'll talk when I get back. It's not like I'm going forever. I'm gonna come back at some point. Right? So yeah, I jet off to the UK, you know, keep asking how's he doing, they give me updates, and then I had moved October, as I'm telling you. I moved in September. October, that was the month. So I remember, I think 2 weeks in after I had moved, my grandmother called me and my aunt. They called me and they were like, you remember that you saw him in hospital, you saw him suffering, and you've seen how so much pain he's in. They've had the surgery to try to remove the cancer, but the doctors stopped midway through the surgery because they were like, it's progressed too much, there's nothing they can do. So they just wrapped him up and basically just said he's got like a few months to live, like not even a month. I think they said a month or two to live. So they just put him on medication just to ease his pain, but there's nothing more they could do for him. So my grandmother called me with that. She's like, you saw him, you saw how in pain he was. I think it's time for you to start preparing because it's not gonna make it. So at that point, I'm alone here, and part of me understood. I was like, okay, yeah, like I understand, but it's never easy accepting that someone is gonna die, accepting that the person that you love is going to die. Like, it's never easy. So you always have that glimpse of hope that something's gonna happen, or a miracle is gonna happen, and they're telling me this, and I'm here and I'm alone, and I was like, okay, fine. I mean, how do you prepare? What do you do? How do you prepare for someone's death? Okay, and in my head, when you always say, it's better to see someone getting sick than to receive a phone call that someone's passed away when you've just been with them the day before. This was a slightly different. I was like, you know what? It's not easy. It is not easy at all. And mind you, I don't have a support structure here. I think the one thing that got me through that period was my friends back home, because they would call me every day. And also Lundu, she knows this a lot, because she's one person I would cry to and be like, okay, this is what's happening now. And I would talk to her, but guys, it is hard. And to tell you the truth, when I moved, because I was still new, I didn't have a lot of friends, and in my uni, the way that it was set up, you attend lectures 2 times or 3 times a week, and it was block lectures, and it's not like undergrad where you get to interact a lot with other people. Here people are more like, it's postgrads, people mind their own business, people don't really, there was no that social interaction. Even where I was staying alone. I was staying in a student, it was private student accommodation, but it was single flats, so it was like a bachelor pad where you have everything. And I was staying alone, and even then, like at that point, I didn't have any neighbors. And also, it's difficult to make a friendship start and be saying, hey, this is the heavy load that I'm carrying, please help me carry it. So it was literally just me navigating on my own, trying to figure things out, trying to question whether was it the good move to make? Why did it happen at that time? Like, did I leave too soon? Like, should I not have? It was all of those things, but the support system from my friends back at home helped a lot, because that meant I at least have someone to talk to. Like, I at least have someone to cry to when I need to cry, or when I need advice, or when I need to vent. Okay, fair enough. After that phone call with my grandmother, I knew things were starting to deteriorate. So they would go to see him at hospital. And then, how you'd ask, what's going on? How is he? And it eventually got to a point where they stopped telling me his condition, because when someone's gonna go, they start losing a bit of things, like their ability. Like, you start losing your eyesight, you start losing a lot of things. So my grandmother had to be the person that bared all of that, because she didn't want anyone else to see him at that point when he was like that, because she was trying to preserve like the memory that they have not to see him in that state. So she would go in every day. She saw him deteriorate to the point where he stopped speaking. Like, he literally stopped speaking. Oh my goodness. But yeah, that happened. And that at that point, I was literally speaking to God and praying and just saying, God, you know what? If this person is gonna make it, help them to get better. But if he's not gonna make it, God, then make it stop. Help him to be at peace. Help him to rest, because it's painful. It's painful. It's killing everybody. And the day came. October. It was the 8th of October. And the craziest thing happened on the day before. Right, the day before I received the news. I felt something heavy, man, in my spirit. I felt something very heavy, and throughout that whole day, I felt the need to pray. I was praying so much that day. I prayed so much. I cried so much. I remember crying so much and praying so much and praying for his life. I was praying, and I didn't understand what my spirit was doing. Like, I didn't understand what my spirit was trying to say to me at that point, but I prayed so much. I prayed so much, guys. Like, I remember it. It was like, even at night, I slept a little bit early. Oh, sorry, I slept a little bit early because like, I felt something was not right, man. And I slept. I prayed. I told God, please help him get better. If not, please, like, do something. This is your person. Like, if it's gonna get better, let him get better. If not, then, Lord, we, like, at least let's know what's going on. Don't prolong it any longer if you're not gonna make him stay. And that's a very difficult prayer to pray, but I did. And I slept. And funny enough, that night, I dreamt about him. I dreamt him. He came to me in my sleep and in my dreams. Remember how they said he couldn't speak? He was speaking, guys. He was speaking, he was laughing, and he was happy. He was so happy. And he told me that, don't worry, I'm fine. And I was like, wow, okay. He was like, don't worry, I'm fine. You can see I'm fine. He was happy. He was himself. He wasn't even not like sleeping in the bed or anything. He was standing. He was fine. He was like, I'm fine, don't worry. I was like, okay, cool. I woke up and I was like, I didn't understand what the dream meant at that point. But when they called me at home, I remember they called me around 9. They're like, yeah, he passed away in the early hours of the morning. And I broke down. Like, it's different knowing someone is going to die and knowing someone has died. It's very different. Because it gives that finality to things. Even though I knew that it was going to happen, but when it happened, it hit me differently. It hit me so differently. And that's when I realized the importance of community, the importance of having your loved one close to you. When you receive such news, I understood why they say don't break the news to someone when they're on the road. Wait for them to get home so that you can tell them when they're home. Because literally, I was all alone. All I wanted, I remember very clearly that all I wanted was a hug. I wanted someone to cry on. But I was all alone and I was crying in my room, and it hurts so deeply because I'm like, I am all alone and I'm feeling all these things, and all I need right now is just someone to touch me. I just need someone to touch me and hug me and tell me that things are gonna be fine. Like, that's all I just need, a human touch. And there was no one. So I had to deal with that on my own. I had to come to terms, comfort myself, cry, and pray. And yeah, I was not okay for a long time. Because also back at home, they're trying to prepare for the funeral and all of those things. All of them are stressed. They're doing their own things. So I can't be the person now who's crying to them now, and they have to stress about me that she's not okay. So I had to be the strong person and be like, okay, what needs to happen? I was very strong towards my family. No, I don't think they actually felt or understood the magnitude of my pain when I was speaking to them. But when I was alone and I was just processing, I was going quite a lot. And because back then, I remember the funeral was in November, and back then no one was really sort of keen on there was no live streaming or whatever. Part of me wanted to go home, but I could not go home. I don't think I've mentioned this. I could not go home because I just got here. If you're on a student visa, they monitor your attendance. There's a certain number of there's a limit to how much you can miss lectures because of your visa. And yeah, and also the cost that was associated, and because of the hospital bill that we're footing, I was also helping contribute towards the bills. So I was like, it's not gonna help for me to want to go home when they also need the money to do other things. They must rather just get the money and do what they need to do. I mean, I don't know, I'll be fine, I guess, you know. So yeah, day came, the time for the funeral came. I remember I wanted to see the funeral, but I couldn't. There was no live stream, and I also didn't expect my family to sort of, you know, put special measures in place for me. But the guilt from not attending his funeral ate me up so much after that. Like, it ate me up. Like, I'm like, do you understand? Like, because, and funny enough, you know, grief is a crazy thing, guys. Grief is a very crazy, and you can't explain it until you go through it, and you also don't understand it because it comes in stages. There's a stage where there's disbelief, and at that point for me I was still in disbelief because the funeral came, right? They did everything. They put him to the cemetery on the day of, and please don't laugh at me, guys, on the day of the actual funeral. Afterwards, I was crying so much, guys. I'm asking, and I'm like, so they left him there. They left him there at the cemetery. So you just left him. And they're like, yeah. I mean, that's what happens to dead bodies. And part of me was so sad. I'm like, he must be so lonely. Just lying there on his own. He must be, like, guys, like, I know these things, ne? But my head was like, is he not cold? Like, is he not lonely? Like, how can you just leave him there? Just, you know? That was part of grief for me. Those were my questions. And I know that to some people it may sound like crazy, strange questions. Yes, I know the answers, but those things at that moment came through to my head. I'm like, you know, and after some time, I started accepting it a little bit. I'm like, okay, he was sick. I did see him. He's in a better place. He should just rest. He should just rest. He played his part. He did everything for me. I can't complain. There's nothing that I hold against him. He paved the path. I have a future, a bright future, because of the sacrifices that he's done for me. And I'm happy. But like, phew, it hit me. It hit me. I slowly started accepting, and at that point I was writing one exam for a business module, and I did so badly in that module because of that. I didn't fail it, but I didn't do well because I was still wishing, you know. And part of me after that, I was like, okay. And then because I was meaning to go home, like, you know, and then COVID came, I couldn't go home. And then the guilt was starting to eat me up. This is a pastry, guys. The guilt was starting to eat me up a lot. I was like, okay, like, I need some closure, because I feel like I didn't get the closure. I didn't see his body. You know, when you like, but I didn't see his coffin go down. I didn't see his lifeless body. So something is missing. I'm missing something. I'm missing closure. I feel like I'm not going to get it. And people are not going to understand because they were there. They saw the finality of everything. But for me, in my mind, my brain still can't process it right because I didn't physically see, you know, to a point where I was like, you know what, I need to consult. I even went as far, like, I was like, you know what, I need answers. And I went as far as seeking the help of a medium. I consulted a medium, and yeah, and it was such a magical experience. It was the first time I was doing it, but it brought me so much closure. I must say, it brought me so much closure because I was able to say to the medium, okay, this is this. Obviously, you don't say anything, they feel your energy, and she was quite good. She picked it up instantly. I told her, like, this is what happened. I'm trying to connect. And she connected with my grandfather, and she told me things that I was like, wow. She was like, yeah, you're so similar to your granddad. Like, I can feel your spirit and his spirit are the same. You guys have the same sort of work ethic, and you are the female version of him. And I was like, and I cried. Like, I remember I cried so much in that session. She was like, okay, it's okay for you to cry, let it all out, because at that point I hadn't been home like in like a year and a few months, so I had not seen his grave, I had not seen anything. Phew. And then she was like, let it all out, he's fine, he's saying he's okay, don't let go of the guilt, let it go, because he understands it was not your fault. You wanted to be there, but you couldn't be there. So don't punish yourself. He's happy for you. He's happy. You know, I was like, wow. At least I can breathe now. You know, I can breathe. Yeah, and after that, I think a huge load just moved out from my shoulders. I started to heal a little bit better and stuff like that. But and then the opportunity came for me to go home. And then obviously, you know, if you're from an African family that follows tradition, you have to go to the grave to pay your respects to the dead, and you sort of tend the soil. And we did that when I got home, and they sort of explained that I'm back, and I got to do that. It was not the same though, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was not the same. It was, in as much as I would have loved to be there physically and just send him off properly, but I hope he understands and he knows that I love him and I still miss him so much and I look up to him so much. But yeah, guys, that's the story. That's my story. But in terms of dealing with it, that's how I dealt with loss when I was away from my family. Having my friends as a support system to talk to. I also journaled a lot of my feelings down. It helped me to sort of express myself better, and also writing it down felt like I was explaining to someone, and it lifted that burden off me without having to burden other people. And on the days where I needed to cry, I'd cry out a lot. And also I had like recordings of him, and I'm so glad that I kept the recordings because it helped me through my healing process, because sometimes you just want to hear their voice, and I still have them, and sometimes when I want to hear them, I just listen to those voice recordings and it brings me so much joy. And these pictures of him that I have, and those help, like having him physically present in terms of memories and pictures, help keep his memory alive. And it helps me to, like, because I want him to remain as a good memory, and he is a good memory to me. So we all process grief differently, we all deal with grief differently. But if you are going through grief, just know that it's gonna pass. Nothing beats the magic doctor of time. Time heals all wounds, and retrospectively you get to understand why certain things happen the way that they do. For me, because after that I prayed to God a lot, and a lot of things started to make sense. I was like, okay, I understand, God, why you had to take him away. He was playing such a crucial role, and for order for us to grow as a family, in order for us to grasp life differently, he had to go, because he was the glue. He held that family together, and a lot of things wouldn't have happened if we're still around, you know. So I understand why he had to go. Like a lot of thinking led me, or a lot of clarity, revelations also, maybe God helped me with the spirit of guidance. It helped me to understand why it was his time. Like, he had served his purpose, and there's nothing more that I can fault him on by God taking him at that point. Yes, I would have loved to spend more time with him, but it was his time, and he had fulfilled his mission, and he did it well. So like, as you grieve, as you go through the different stages, you start to process, and you start to understand, and you start to accept. And then when you get to the point where you've healed, that's when he starts becoming like happy, when you can talk properly, when you can laugh. Don't mind me when I was tearing up, like right now, speaking about it. Sometimes, some days are like they're crazy. Some days I can speak about him nicely, like without even me crying and smiling. Even now, he's a happy memory, even though I've gone through the different stages of grief, but he's a happy memory to me. When I speak about him, I speak highly of him. I'm happy, like, you know. So you will get to that point if you're not there yet, but don't rush yourself. It is a process. Everyone is different. If you need to talk, don't bottle things in. Let them out. If you need to cry, don't. You know the thing that they tell us in Black families, that you're gonna hold them up. Don't cry. Please do cry. Crying helps. It lets out. It lets out those things that are so deeply embedded in our hearts. It lets them out, and you sort of can breathe slightly better. So if you need to cry, cry. If you need to vent. If you want to write it out, write how you're feeling down, write that down. Or whatever it is that you do. Some people, when they're healing, they try to sort of they try to preserve the memory. If that helps you as well, then do that. Anything that you can do to sort of help you move past it and help you live with it. In any case or in any event, it's something that will be with you for the rest of your life. It's something that you can't easily erase. It's something that we grow up with and we learn to manage and we live with. So I hope this helps in somebody out there, or if you've watched up until to this point of this video, then thank you so much. You're a real one. But yeah, that's my story. It's not easy, guys. It's not easy because you carry a lot of guilt, and some people might ask, why don't you just go? Excuse me. There are a lot of factors that come into play when you plan a trip going back home. You know, if something such as unexpected and such as sudden as death doesn't allow you to go back home financially, then obviously it becomes a constraint. Oh, for work reasons, sometimes it might just be like, okay, I know some employers are very empathetic and they understand that these things happen, but when you're living abroad, the reality is going back home is not something that you do like this. You need to plan for it financially. You need to have a plan of how you're going to do it. And also, in my case, if you can see that financially your trip going back home would rather be put to better use than wasting money on the trip, and also when you get there you come empty-handed, now it's going to be like, okay, fine, I'm here but I can't help you guys. I'm just gonna, it didn't make sense to me. Some people might have the money, and I encourage you, by all means, go, because I still carried that guilt to be like, I wasn't there. Like, I hope he doesn't see it as disrespect, But I know he's a real one. He understands. Anyway, guys, this is it. This is it for me. It has been a bit of a heavy one, but yeah, that's just my story. And I'm not even going to say I hope you enjoyed it, because there's nothing to enjoy from this, but it's something that is a learning experience, and sharing our experiences helps other people in the process. So yeah, I love you so much. Bye.